Yo, what up everyone? Amir here, owner of Rapping and Snacking, getting into another hot takes video. A lot of people like these, so I'm going to drop two this week. Just going to do another one on the fly, so hit me up on Instagram. I'm going to be doing another hot takes poll for y'all, so probably in a couple days after this video dropped, I'm going to ask for a bunch of people's hot takes. It's going to be up there for 24 hours, so cast your takes. You'll probably see yourself in this video. I'll shout you out. Appreciate y'all. Hit me up on TikTok as well, Rapping and Snacking. And let's get into some hot takes. First off, let's see. We got a few here. This one person is saying, his name is N.W.A 2001. He's actually submitted a ton of hot takes, and I've only been able to do a couple of them. But he is saying Prime Game was better than Prime Eminem. And so I know this guy's a huge Game fan, and I'm definitely going to disagree with that hot take. That's definitely a hot take. And you know the funny thing is, the Game is actually a really, really good rapper. I think as far as albums, he has one of the best solo discographies that I've heard, which is wild because you usually don't hear people talk about his solo albums. His albums, you usually hear them talk about the documentary, Doctor's Advocate, and that's pretty much kind of where it stops, typically from people that I personally see. But I would not think that the Game was in his prime with those two albums. I think the albums themselves are excellent, but I think the Game, you can hear him as a rapper. He hasn't really reached to the top of his potential. I think his potential really comes around like the Red Album, and after that, like Red Album, Documentary 2, 2.5, Jesus Piece. Like in those albums, I think you hear him better with the pen, better with his concepts, better with how he writes his rhymes. Now, Eminem, the difference between the Game and the Eminem is Eminem started off way stronger, like Slim Shady LP. I mean, I know that's not his first work, but as far as official studio major label debut album, it would be Slim Shady LP. Then we get Marshall Mathers LP, and to me, Prime Eminem is Marshall Mathers LP Eminem. It doesn't get better than that for Eminem's career, and also that just smokes anything the Game has ever put out. I think as far as consistency goes, I think the Game has a more consistent catalog in that sense, and I wouldn't be mad if someone said the Game's discography was better than Eminem's. I wouldn't sit here and fight with you or say you're crazy or not like that, because I think the Game's catalog is actually pretty underrated. It's really freaking good. But to say, that's why the wordage or the verbiage, whatever this guy's using, is so key, because he's saying basically Eminem at his top of his game is better than, or he's saying that the Game at the top of his potential is better than Eminem at the top of his potential, and there's no way. Eminem, when he was at his prime, at his best, at 100%, smokes so many artists out there, and the Marshall Mathers LP is a clear example. Even Eminem Show, even Slim Shady LP, he's incredible. Now, his latest albums, you can say that the Game has had, like, he stayed a little more like this, boom, 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 whereas Eminem was kind of like boom, and then it kind of goes down, 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 or whatever you want to say it. The graph is a little more wonky for Eminem, so I'm not going to keep going on there. Next up, we got same dude. He has another Game take. He says the Game is a top 10 rapper, and the documentary is a top 10 album of all time. So once again, I'm not going to go ahead and be mad if someone says the Game has like a top 10 discography of all time, right? I'm not going to get mad about that, because his solo discography is really, really, really good. For those of y'all who have not heard it, please try and separate the art from the artist. The Game is an incredible artist as far as, or the art that he makes is so good with his music, but sometimes when you see him doing like his little beefs, doing his promo, like for lately where he was kind of like dissing Dre and dissing Eminem and dissing 50 again and trying to clout chase and all that stuff, like it's really corny. So as long as you kind of ignore that stuff on the side and you just listen to the music that he puts out, you'd be like, damn, this music's really good. But sometimes it's hard to do that. I can hear you. But his discography is great. Now, to say the documentary is a top 10 album of all time, hell no. The documentary is so great. But, like I said, the Game was probably at his weakest in terms of his pen game. He was not that good. He obviously has relied on name dropping for his whole career, for a bunch of it. But in this album, it is like peak Game name dropping, relying on people and all that. And 50 Cent helped so much on that album. So there's like the beats on there are phenomenal, incredible. The production is great. and the features are dope too, but Game was also at his weakest with the pen. So no, that's not even my favorite Game album. But it's a dope one, definitely not top 10. I don't think any of his albums come close to top 10 material. It's my opinion. Next up, and I want to know what y'all think about the Game and what I've been saying about the Game and all that. Next up, we got someone named Premium Plus. This person saying the Alkaholiks are the best hat trick from the 1990s, their first 3 albums. I'm going to go ahead, and this is definitely a hot take, I'm going to go ahead and say definitely not. I think that the Alkaholiks are dope. I think that they're underrated. I think that they're very unique. I think to pick a name, the Alkaholiks, is really risky because it's kind of like you kind of are realizing, and they probably weren't realizing because they were probably teenagers when they made the name, but you kind of pretty much have to stick with alcohol in all your music because your name is the Alkaholiks. So how can you, I don't know, it'd be kind of weird if they stop making music referencing alcohol, you know what I mean, or beer or whatever. So they put themselves in that kind of pickle. But then on top of that, to kind of address this question, no way. Even if we're talking just groups, I can name quite a few that had better albums, like A Tribe Called Quest. I believe People's Instinctive Travels came out in 1990. Then we got Low End Theory in 1991. Then we got Midnight Mirage 93. That's 3 right there. Then we got like De La Soul with De La Soul's Dead, Balloon Mind State, Stakes is High. I'd take those over from the 90s. I'd take Gangstars, Step in the Arena, Daily Operation, Hard to Earn over it. Or even if you want to go from Daily Operation to Hard to Earn to Moment of Truth, I'd take those over it. I'd take UGK's first 3 albums over it. I'd take 8-Ball and MJG's first 3 albums over it. So we can keep going. Those are just people I just named off the top of my head. I do a lot of these videos freestyle, so those are people I'm just doing off the top of my head. We can do Cypress Hill's albums. I take over the Alkaholiks. I'm looking at my wall right now. So no. But do I think the Alkaholiks are dope and need props? Yes, I do think that. And if we're talking solo discographies, oh man, we can get a big list as well. So I'm going to go ahead and disagree, but I always appreciate when, I mean, that's what it's a hot take for. You know, people are going to disagree with you. Next up, we got someone named DeMarcus Saw 06. This person, I love this man because this shows to me that people, they do watch my stories and stuff, and they read my posts, and they know that Death Certificate is my favorite album of all time. Ice Cube's my favorite rapper of all time. So they purposely point these takes in my way, and this guy is saying Ice-T's Power and Iceberg is better than Ice Cube's The Predator and Death Certificate, and that is a hard no. That's a hot take, and no one's sitting here and saying Ice-T's not a dope rapper because he is an awesome rapper. He's a pioneer. He's super influential, and he's still rapping at a high level considering he's in his 60s, and he's put out some music recently, and it's pretty good. But to say that Power and Iceberg are better than Predator and Death Certificate, no way. No way. Iceberg is not even a top 3 Ice-T album in my opinion. And Power is a dope one, but neither of those, I wouldn't put any of those over the Predator, and especially none of them are touching Death Certificate. I don't even think Ice-T would say something that crazy. And I want y'all, hey, I love Ice-T, love me some Ice-T, and as all of you should, but come on, we can't say that. I mean, maybe you can go up against maybe like Lethal Injection or something like that, and even then I wouldn't, but I want to know what y'all think about that, because I know a lot of y'all listen to older hip-hop too, and what do y'all think about this take, because I definitely disagree with it. Next up, we got someone named Chase Banks Pops. This guy is saying Beastie Boys do not get enough credit for what they have done for hip-hop or their music, and I'm going to go ahead and agree with this. I think it is a hot take because I post a lot of hip-hop, and I don't see a lot of people really shouting out the Beastie Boys like I see with my other posts, so that's always interesting. But the Beastie Boys, I mean, they really help bridge a lot of gaps here for hip-hop and just music in general. They had a lot of, rock influence. They brought, people from other genres to hip-hop, so that was just very important. And a lot of the music that they've done, like obviously with Rick Rubin and other people, is just huge. Def Jam, like, possibly the most important label, one of the biggest labels of all time for hip-hop. I mean, without Beastie Boys, they wouldn't have sold nearly as much. They wouldn't have been as influential, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, in hip-hop and in music. I mean, Beastie Boys, we got Run DMC, we got so many artists, LL Cool J, etc., but Beastie Boys were a big staple for that label. And their music is awesome, especially for me, like Paul's Boutique, and to hear how different it was than Licensed to Ill is wild. And Licensed to Ill, I think it went diamond. It sold millions of albums. So, and it's not like it just sold millions of albums and it was whack. I mean, listen to Paul Revere. I mean, how good is that song? How great is that beat? How dope is that story? I mean, Beastie Boys are really dope. They were really authentic, and they deserve to be noticed more, and their place is in hip-hop to stay. And, I mean, yeah, I agree with this. Yeah, maybe it's a hot take, but I definitely agree with that one for sure. Shout out to Chase Banks Pops for that one. Next up, we got someone named Malonington saying, Ghetto Boys need the same amount of attention and respect as N.W.A. Yeah, it's probably a hot take. Yeah, I'd say it's a hot take. And you know what? This is interesting because you can kind of answer this a couple of different ways. And I think the Ghetto Boys are incredible. I love their discography. They also had a couple group switches where they didn't have Willie D in the group at one point. They didn't have Bushwick Bill in the group at one point. They had Mike D in the group at one point, Reddy Red. You know, so they had a few different, and then you had the OG lineup too, before Scarface was even part of the group and Willie D and all that. But that's a whole other story. But as far as the Ghetto Boys, I mean, their discography is really dope. They had a couple, things that weren't as great, but their discography is really solid. And N.W.A, their discography is really small. But the thing is, it's like the reason why this is hard for me to kind of agree with is because when you're saying needs the same amount of attention, respect as N.W.A, is not only are they popular for their music as a group, but they're also very popular because of the artists that spawn from their group. And we can just talk about the main ones who spawned from their group, like Dre, Cube, Easy, Ren, and Yella also had an album too. But we can talk about them, but we can also talk about the other artists that spawned from them. Like we have the DOC, we have Arabian Prince, we have Above the Law, we have the artists from Ruthless Records, we have like Snoop with Death Row Records, and so on and so forth, Dog Pound, whatever. Then we get Cube and then his artists. So it's like, how deep are we kind of talking about, like, with N.W.A? So if we're talking strictly discography, then yeah, I think Ghetto Boys definitely need to get the same amount of attention, respect as N.W.A. If we're talking about overall influence, which to me, that's kind of like what respect is. He's not talking about like discography, really. He's talking about like respect. And to me, respect also includes what they've done for hip hop. What's succeeded them is groups. And I think what succeeded N.W.A is possibly the best family tree ever in hip hop. It's crazy. If you break down the artists and the music that came from the artists from N.W.A and those labels, it's mind-blowing how crazy it is. Like, you have so much music that you can listen to just from those, just from N.W.A. It's wild. If you go ahead and go down that rabbit hole, it's really dope. So I kind of agree, kind of disagree, but that's my take. Shout out to Malonington. Ghetto Boys are super awesome. Next up, we get someone here named, oh wow, okay, his name kind of cut off here, but Victor Ruvalcaba Non-E something. This person is saying Biggie's Life After Death album is better than the Ready to Die album. I'm going to go ahead and disagree with this. And it's not really a hot take because I actually see this quite often. And to me, I think there's a very popular... Okay, block is hot. There's a pretty popular phrase out there that's quality over quantity. And I'm not going to say that Life After Death is not quality, because it is quality. But the point is, just because the album's longer, just because it has more songs that you may like, does not mean it's better, because there's more songs on the album as well, so there's more to choose from, and then you can dump some things and kind of forget they're on the album because you don't listen to them. The point is, Ready to Die is really, if you think about it from a thematic, conceptual album, there's not many as great as that album. That album is so remarkable because... And this is why skits are so important to hip-hop and music in general. And I don't want to get on too much of a tangent, but if you recall from the intro of Ready to Die, the album, you get, Biggie being born, and he's born to this world and blah, 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 whatever. And the whole intro is like a skit, whatever. And then you get into Things Done Change, like he's born and shit didn't change. And then we just go through the album and, you hear a bunch of stuff about Biggie and stories and whatever. A lot of dope material. And then you get to the last song. And I'm not talking about the repress. I'm talking about the original album, where it's, I think, 17 tracks off the top of my head. It ends with Suicidal Thoughts. And then when he ends it with, matter of fact, I'm sick of talking, and then, he's dead, that's pretty much, think about it, that's a pretty perfect conceptual album. And this is why I feel like, oh my God, he deserves so much credit for that piece of work, because it's a perfect in the sense of he started alive, the album's called Ready to Die, at the end of it, he's dead. And I don't know if that went over people's heads, but didn't go over, that was purely intentional by Bad Boy Records, by Puff, by Biggie, by everyone involved. And it's genius work. It needs to be, and it's not like it was just a concept and the music in between was whatever it meant. The music was phenomenal. See, Life After Death, although also conceptual, it's got, also like the You're Nobody Till Somebody Kills You, and it has its moments on there and all that. It still also has the filler tracks, the songs that aren't as good. I've actually talked about this in a couple other videos, but it's got, you can kind of tell like Biggie was also going to go a little more in the commercial route, and he already had some commercial stuff. Granted, he was exec produced by Puff Daddy, so of course he was always going to go in that commercial route eventually, but you kind of heard it a little more in Life After Death, like with the Mo Money Mo Problems, with the Fucking You Tonight, with some of the songs he was doing in there. You can kind of tell, even like Sky's the Limit, whereas on Ready to Die you had like Juicy, but you didn't really have as many songs that were trying to cross the commercial wave as obviously, I should say, because even Juicy, the sample was a little like that, but I don't know, it's hard to explain. But I think Ready to Die is definitely a little more rugged, a little more Biggie is Biggie with a little less of Puff in his ear, but still Puff in his ear. Life After Death is excellent, but I don't think it's as good as Ready to Die. And we can have like a whole breakdown video of it where we can talk for an hour just breaking down songs and whatever, but y'all don't want to hear that. Y'all want to hear what I think about the hot takes, and that's what I think. I think Ready to Die is better than Life After Death. I see even a lot of people say this, though, but remember, quantity is not greater than quality. That's my opinion. What do y'all think of these hot takes? I love these hot takes from y'all. They're really fun. Maybe I need to do a live and talk with y'all one day. That's for sure. But like I said, look out for another hot takes poll. I'll be doing that on Instagram, so hit me up on there at Rappin' and Snackin'. Hit me up on TikTok too at Rappin' and Snackin'. Buy a shirt if you want to support. Do that. Click an ad because it gets me money and it's free for y'all, and you won't get a virus. At least you shouldn't. So appreciate y'all's support, and I'll talk to y'all next time. I'm out of here. Bless.